Welcome to Community 112. What up? Sorry, I had to do that. Okay, we have Marcia here today,
Wow.
and we're going to ask her some questions. Cool?
Yeah, cool.
Okay.
Let's go.
And we also have Chris.
Yes, sir.
All right. Start off with the Enneagram.
So I, for a while, especially like around age 13, was going through it, and that's when our church was super into it. So I like just got really into it, and for a while I thought I was a 3 with a 2 wing. Now I'm kind of leaning towards a 7 with a 6 wing. Yeah, still not super sure, but I think I'm a 7. The like core, what is it? The core like drivenness and like the core fears.
Yeah.
So the core fear for the 3 is what I resonate with more.
Okay.
But then like the way the 7 acts and like reacts to different situations is kind of more like me. So I'm kind of still in the middle about that, but I'm leaning towards a 7.
Okay.
Yep.
What made you switch?
Just
the fears and...
Yeah, more that. And like I think when I had first started off, I had kind of people like telling me that I was a 3. And so that's what I kind of had started off with. And then I read like the 3 with the 2-ing, and I was like, wow, that sounds a lot like me. But then I think just as I've gotten older, the more I like act like a 7. So
Gotcha.
Yeah.
I don't know, still in the middle.
Yeah, it takes some time. I thought I was a 2.
That's how it goes.
And I landed on 1. And you're
Yeah.
5.
5 all the way.
Yeah, 4 wing.
Yeah.
Did you ever think you were anything else?
No.
It's just a solid
No.
5.
Yeah, I saw Fear Triad, and then I just narrowed it down.
And you knew.
Yeah.
Yeah. Only like a 5 would know. Right.
Possibly.
Yeah.
It's different for everyone, but
Yeah. Okay. So next question. Are you introverted or extroverted?
So I am extremely extroverted.
Okay. Really?
Yeah, I don't know if there's like any introvert in me. I mean, there is, but it's.
Okay.
I think as I've gotten older, I've gotten a tiny bit more introverted. It just kind of depends.
yeah.
But for the most part, I'm an extrovert. I like always want to be out and about.
So I like to think about it like percentages. So like 90-10,
Right.
80-20.
It might be like 95-5.
95-5.
95.
Okay. Every time I hear 95-5, I just think of the fish.
The
They
fish.
ruined that for me.
Yeah.
Okay. So 95% extroverted.
Probably, yeah.
Okay. The next question is, what is your least favorite job?
So, besides babysitting, I have only ever worked at a chicken farm, which is super exciting. I've worked there for the past year, and it is my least favorite job. I
But
guess I also have to say
your
it's my
most
favorite. Yeah.
Okay.
I would say, I mean, my bosses are amazing.
Yeah.
That's my favorite part about the job.
Except when they make fun of you.
Yeah, that's true. We do have,
Yeah.
I mean, we do have kind of a mean boss, you know?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I also work with her at
Yeah.
the chicken farm. So
Shout out to
I-
Brendan.
yeah, shout out.
Yeah.
Anyway, but the chickens are not super. That's where I work at chicken farm. They're
Gotcha.
something.
Yeah.
They're pretty disgusting.
Well, we were just talking about them, and she was calling them hymns and not hers. So,
Yeah, it's a layer
Yeah.
barn, so they lay eggs, but I call them hymns.
Yeah.
because she's offended.
That's what I
Wow.
said.
Okay. All right. What is a funny story that your family would tell other people about you?
Okay, so this one's more recent. I just got my license in March. So when I had my temps, I was driving with my mom on the way home, and I had this cup, and I had like just gotten a smoothie, and there was like, you know, that little bit left where you just want to have it, but then it's like slurping.
Yeah.
So I slurped
right.
it, and my mom was like, "Don't you dare slurp that again." I did, and she reached over and like started pinching me.
And you were
And so
driving?
I totally like stopped paying attention, and I was like trying to, you know, defend myself.
Yeah.
And she starts like yelling at me. I look up and we're headed straight towards the mailbox. But it was a quick fix. It was fine.
Okay.
It was,
Swerves.
yeah. I like looked up. I like to tell them I looked up and I was like, and we were back on the road.
Okay. Was that in the Volvo?
I just like totally forgot I was
Yeah.
driving.
Yeah.
No, it wasn't.
It was in your monster van?
No,
Oh.
it was in the Buick.
Oh.
If it was in our monster van, could have been really bad.
Yeah. Maybe flipped a thing.
Yeah.
All right, Chris, you want to ask the next one?
All right. So what is one big thing that people misunderstand about you?
So when I was thinking about this, like, it's kind of hard when you can't ask people what they think about you, but I think part of it might be like because I'm super extroverted, I can come across as like really confident, and I'm actually like, I mean, I'm insecure as most everyone is, but I'm also super, like sensitive, which I don't think people sometimes understand is like small things can really hurt me. So I think that something is like, I come across as super confident. Like sometimes like no one can get to me in some ways, but like things really do affect me. So I think that's, one of the things that's been really.
Right.
Yeah. That's something that's so like weird about people's personalities is like people that you think are like super confident, if you actually talk to them, they're like, oh no, I'm like everybody else.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
I don't know why people perceive certain things. But
And well, like part of why I thought I was a 3 is just like, but I tend to sometimes put on like a, like when you first meet people, you want to look a certain way or like act a certain way or come across a certain way. So I think part of it is that I tend to do that when I'm in situations just because I'm like, I want them to think the best of me in this situation. So
yeah,
I think that's part of it too.
Yeah.
that makes sense.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right. More serious question here. What obstacle would you say is the biggest that you're facing right now?
So something I've been like thinking about and actually have learned a lot in the past year is just like about relationships in general, especially friendships, and I would say, I don't know, just navigating friendships and kind of learning, like before I just kind of had like best friends and then like people that I knew but wasn't like, but now I've kind of learned that like certain friends have certain places in my life, and learning that I can take steps back to, or like even like learning that sometimes I just need to approach people, which I think I had naturally have a tendency to do.
Yeah.
But like I've gotten to this place where I'm like, I have to make the choice to do it and have to be super intentional about that. And I would say just like learning boundaries and learning that I can't always be like a best friend. Sometimes I can be a friend. Even if maybe that relationship isn't super life-giving to me, like I can be life-giving to them. So I think, just learning, that certain relationships have certain places in my life, and I don't always have to be getting life from that person. I can be giving life to people too. So.
Yeah. No, that makes sense. Relationships are just like hard, and like I feel like they shouldn't have to be, but one thing that drives me nuts, we were talking about pet peeves. Well, we weren't really talking about them, but we mentioned it.
Yeah.
And one of my pet peeves is like you have like two different people and they think something about this person and then that person thinks something about them, but neither one of them will go talk to the other person. And like being involved more in the church, like you see different people like venting or saying something and you're like, okay, why don't you just go talk to them? Like
Right.
if you just go talk to them, I'm sure of all the things, like of all the times where I've gone and talked to somebody, they're like, oh no, like I didn't mean that, or like I'm sorry that you thought that. Like I don't know, things can get solved so easily if people would just
Right.
be willing to communicate.
And I think even for I think even for girls, it's so much harder to go out to people and be like, so you said that? What were you thinking?
Yeah.
Or like, did you mean that? But
see,
confrontation.
Yeah. I feel like girls, and like I'm not a girl, obviously, so like I'm just saying from my observation, but I feel like girls can like always, not always, but sometimes they mean something different than what they're saying.
Mm-hmm.
And so they'll say it in a certain way or say it with a tone and then it means something else.
Yeah.
But like,
Whereas I feel like
Yeah.
guys sometimes just don't read into it, just because they know like most of the time people are joking.
yeah.
Whereas girls like read into every
Yeah.
single thing people are
Yes,
saying.
maybe that's the difference.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Do you actually think that girls, like, they actually are meaning something, or do you think it's just read into too far?
I think a lot of it is read into too far. But I mean, sometimes, of course, there are situations where like someone is being passive aggressive or like saying something. But like for the most part, I feel like, especially, I don't know, just seeing different girls, and I'm guilty of this too, is just like looking into it way too far and then like making a big deal out of it.
Yeah. I'm good at reading people, I think, but I'm terrible at reading passive aggressiveness. Like,
Mm-hmm.
I don't get it.
Yeah.
Like, if something is wrong, just say something's
Which
wrong.
I
You don't
think
have to
that's
like.
Right.
better than like reading into it too much. Be like, oh, they said this, so that means they're passive aggressive. Like they're
Yeah.
trying to hurt me. So
Yeah.
I think it's better to have the mindset of like, oh, they're not being passive aggressive.
Yeah.
Right. Assuming the best in people
Right.
can kind of like break down those barriers of
Yeah,
that people try to put out.
Mm-hmm.
that's a really good point. Assuming the best. Yeah,
Mhm.
that's something I'm gonna write down in my brain.
Right.
Assuming the best.
That kind of ties in a little bit with our topic for today.
Yeah, which we're gonna dive into in a little bit.
Yep.
Yeah, I totally just lost
Last
my
question.
train of thought. I was gonna say something else about
Oh,
the
okay.
friendship thing, but now I forget. Oh well, we'll just jump into the last question.
What is God doing in you today?
So this one I didn't really think about, but
I mean, it could be something that like
like today, or like
Not
in
today.
like the past like little
Past
bit
few
here?
weeks, past few months.
yeah, there's something
Okay.
that God's been teaching you, or you've read or seen or
Mm-hmm.
heard that has really impacted you.
So, I think, going back into a lot of it is the friendship stuff too, but thinking about, totally just cut out. 1 second. There we go. Okay.
Easy.
Sweet.
Thinking about, now I'm going to lose my train of thought. Where we've been talking about a lot about being a leader in certain situations, even in like the perspectives class, and just kind of taking lead. I'm gonna have lost my place.
You were talking about friends
Yeah,
at the beginning.
So I've kind of learned, which I don't even think like I've purposely thought about in myself, but something this like past week, is that I tend to just like sit back and be like, why aren't they approaching me, or like basically make myself the victim in it, and like throw a pity party for myself when sometimes like I've put myself in that position, like I've pulled away, and then I'm like, why aren't they approaching me, or like stuff like that, where I've put myself in the position and then I'm like expect people to do stuff for me when I've been the one pushing them away, or like when I've sent them signals. Or so I think I was even talking with my parents about this. They were just saying like, you can either go and be a leader and approach people and take lead, or you can sit and throw a pity party for yourself. And I mean, it was hard to hear. I needed it, but it was hard to hear. So I think that was, I mean, even in the past week, something that I've really been thinking about a lot. And just like, I think it is my personality almost to take lead in a lot of ways, but being intentional about it, because I will sometimes automatically do that, but then there are other times where I don't feel like doing it. Like, why am I always the one doing it? But I think there are some people who are not going to approach you. That's just their personalities. And so I think in some ways I just have to, like step out of my comfort zone.
Yeah. Sometimes, maybe you guys will disagree with me on this, but sometimes, like, I want my pity party, you know?
Yeah,
I'm like, man, I deserve
true.
this pity party.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Even if it's not, like, consciously thinking of it, but sometimes
Yeah.
it's even,
Mhm.
like, sometimes it is conscious. I'm like, I deserve to,
Yeah.
like,
I deserve
Seriously.
to feel bad.
Yeah.
I found that to be true. Like once you keep seeing it as a pattern, like you're about to like go into self-pity and like dive down that hole, then it's just hard to like get out of it sometimes.
Yeah.
But if you keep recognizing it, then it can be helpful to just step out of it a little bit and give yourself some grace.
Yeah.
It's tough. It's just we're talking about like taking the lead and like in relationships and not really confronting people, but like getting to the bottom of like hurt feelings.
Mm-hmm.
There was somebody that like I had heard something about, but I didn't know if it was true. And then I knew I was going to see them the next day. And so like I passed them and I was like, okay, in my brain I was thinking, okay, Jordan, don't let this person know that you know what you know.
Act casual.
Just act casual, act normal. And so it must have my face must have been messed up somehow. And so later, I was talking to him and he was like, yeah, I could tell that you had negative feelings towards me. And I was like, whoa, no, dude. I was like, I was trying to like make my face not look like that.
Yeah.
Because I didn't, and I didn't want you to think that I did.
Yeah.
And so if he would have never said that, like he would have just thought, oh, Jordan has negative like feelings towards me. Mm-hmm. But I was like, I didn't, so I wanted my face to show that I didn't. But apparently I'm not good at that. I don't know. I need to practice or something.
Yeah.
But it's just interesting, like, when you talk things out, like you said, assuming the best. I mean, right. I think you assume the best and then you talk things out. But, yeah. Easier said than done.
Yeah, those are awkward conversations. And for me, it's like if I go up and approach them and it's super awkward and that's not how they felt, then they're going to think that I think bad about them. That's how they thought about me. Like I tend to overthink it in that way. Like it's going to be super awkward if I approach them and it's not going to be the same after this. Or like they're not going to want to be around me as much if I approach them about this.
Right. It's always best in the end though.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I'm just glad that I don't overthink relationship stuff. Oh. Like,
wow,
I don't
thanks, Jordan.
I'm sorry. I just don't have like the brain power to like. My brain would be fried by the end of the day. I'd be like, I'm wondering what like 10 people are thinking about me. Like, I don't know. But anyway, okay. Anything else to add to that?
I don't think so.
Okay. All right. We're gonna transition into it's just kind of a topic that honestly has been on my heart and mind, and then it's kind of come out a little bit of what we talked about in Colossians, and definitely with perspectives and stuff like that. So the topic is lukewarmness in the church. And if you have it, do you have it?
Have what? The notes?
The Laodicea passage.
Yeah. Should I just read that?
So this is like obviously like the most popular, when you think of lukewarm Christians, this is like the passage that your mind goes to.
Right. I'm out.
You're out? Too. You're both out?
Yeah. Oh, there I am.
There you are. There I am. Nope.
Okay. No. Technical difficulties.
I think, that did it.
Okay, cool.
All right. What verses?
I mean, just the main one about if you're hot or cold.
All right.
And what is it? Is it Revelation what?
So it's Revelation 3, starting in 15.
Okay.
I know your works. You are neither cold nor hot. I wish that you were cold or hot. So because you are lukewarm and neither hot nor cold, I'm going to vomit you out of my mouth.
It's a pretty...
Yeah, it's a pretty intense one.
Pretty intense statement there. I don't know. It's something that if you're a fan of Francis Chan, I don't know if you guys have heard any of his sermons, but he preaches. I feel like he preaches a lot on, or he used to at least preach a lot more on that.
Yeah.
But yeah, we're just gonna break it down. And what do you think are some causes? Like, what do you think? I don't think that people wake up, go to church, then they go home and they're like, I'm just gonna be a lukewarm Christian.
Yeah.
You know, like obviously something is at play there, like behind the scenes. So what do you guys think?
Right. A lot of it has to do with, I would say, like subconscious and like your personality. So basically not all of the battle is going to be at the front of your mind. Like you were said, you're not thinking of whether you're going to be lukewarm or, cold or hot. It's not as much of a conscious thing, but it's more subconscious.
Yeah.
So I think from there, we can ask, like, what are the things that can help us identify, like, which way we're leaning in that moment.
Yeah. Which is easier said than done sometimes.
Right,
but
right.
Yeah. To try to get the subconscious into your conscious.
Yeah.
Right. And honestly, I feel like it's like a battle to constantly be thinking about, okay, today I'm going to be super intentional about spending time in the Word or blessing people and thinking of people first. And like, I think I just don't ever think about it as, okay, the devil wants me to just let my life go on and not pay attention to the Lord and what he wants for me in this week. And like, I need to be constantly fighting for what God wants me to be doing this week.
Yeah, definitely. I feel like there's so many different factors that could be like in play, but
Right.
I think the root of it is probably self.
Yeah.
Just being self-centered, and we're talking right now. We're going through a series in youth on Wednesday nights, and it's called Reverse, but it's basically like a series talking about Daniel's life and how we can live differently. And it's talking about us being me focused versus God focused. And I think a lot of it comes down to is we get lured into being me focused because it is so easy. Like we talked about relationships earlier. Like if you have a relationship that like something isn't right and you're in that awkward moment where you're like, do I address it like we talked about, or do I just kind of like wait and pray about it or whatever? In those moments, it's tough not to think about yourself. And then if it's a really tough relationship, then you just go even more into yourself. But, for me, one of the things that I've tried to be like conscious of in my life is just like the whole like, and I'm not saying it's perfect or anything, but is like the whole American dream and like cars, house, retirement, all that kind of stuff. I'm not saying like be done with your money, but I'm just saying like not striving for that. And I feel like in America, we don't really, when it comes down to it, we don't really need God. Like we don't need God in our minds, at least. We don't need God for the physical things. We don't need him for food or water or shelter. Like we're not desperate for God. And I was listening to a testimony of this girl that became a Christian in her teens or early 20s. And she's like, when she started, like why Christianity and why Jesus was so attractive was because she was desperate. She was actually like super wealthy. She had started to get into like drugs and partying and stuff like that. And she's like, I was desperate. But then once she got into the church life and started hanging out with like-minded people and then kind of put things in perspective, she's like, I slowly fell back into becoming lukewarm because like I wasn't desperate anymore.
Right.
I didn't, there wasn't anything I actually needed physically in the moment.
So that kind of makes me think the desperation for God will lead to, or kind of be a metric for how much we obey what God is saying, like how much we take that extra step, like we were saying in relationships. So that can explain kind of why there's a lot of lukewarmness kind of everywhere, like in the general church. Is because casual Christians, I guess. If you don't start out in a place of desperation, then there's not going to be that. There's not going to be the fruit on the other side, I guess.
Which I think we had talked about the one time when we were just like talking about the topic, was like a lot of the passion for God comes through suffering. Like if you look at like China or some other countries that are going through persecution for their faith, they are on fire for God. They are reaching out to other places, just sharing the gospel. And it's like, then you look at America where we are open to believe whatever we want, and we're just given a choice, and you find lukewarmness here and not somewhere where they have their lives put on the line for believing in Jesus. And like going back onto the lukewarmness, where I feel like we tend to want to put Jesus in with the rest of our stuff. We don't want to make him, again, like we were talking about on Wednesday, like Wednesday. We don't want to make him the foundation. And when he's the foundation, like everything, your focus is going to be completely switched around. Your focus is going to be on people and sharing the gospel, and it's going to be on what God wants for you in that moment. Whereas like when you don't have him as a foundation, you just add him into your life. That's where I feel like you become lukewarm. And your passion is not set on fire for God. And I'm like guilty of adding him into my life rather than making him the foundation.
Right.
I think it, like, you know, we've all, if you've been in the church at all, like you've heard the term die to self, and you know, like Galatians 2:20, like die to self, live for Christ. And like we hear that, but we either don't live it or we don't like fully grasp.
Right.
And we probably never will on this earth, but we can at least strive towards it. I just feel like we were talking about relationships. I mean, I think we're just going to keep going back to this analogy because it's like so.
It's a good one.
It's right there, yeah. But so when you have that, let's say you have that awkward moment with somebody and you're like, wow, they said that kind of with a tone. Like, I wonder, are they like upset with me, or like, what did I do?
Right.
Or maybe they make a different comment and you're thinking, oh, they think I'm this or that. The flesh says, what about me? And the gospel says, what about them? Like, maybe they just got in a horrible fight with their parents before they came to the event, and the reason why they did that is because they were acting out of that. And you're thinking about, oh, like, that was kind of like mean that they said that.
Right.
When this person's like hurting and struggling. And so that's to me where the gospel, like, it's got to be a change, and it's got to be a change to them versus me. And I think what's so like crazy about the gospel is that, like, when Jesus said, I'm the way, the truth, and the life, and he has told us that he wants us to have life and life more abundantly. And what that does in our brain is it says, like, okay, life more abundantly, that means I get like things and money and blessings. But it actually means that we live out the gospel the way that it was intended to live it out. And those are the blessings that actually last and matter.
Right. And
when you're living that way, you're full. You're full. Your life is full. You're happy. Right. People are actually going to be attracted to you because, oh my goodness, like Marcia asked me how I was doing when I was just mean to her. Like, what's wrong with her? You know? And what's wrong with her is the gospel. You know what I mean? Like, I think that's what makes the gospel so attractive. Because
people are going to notice that when like your normal, like your natural is to like retaliate. When people are like mean to you, you're like, okay, then I'm going to just avoid them rather than like doing the unnatural and going up and approaching them and being like, how are you doing? What, like, are you okay? That's just, it's going to come across people like, that makes no sense. And I think, like you're saying, that's what's going to be attractive about it, is because it's so different from anything this world has to offer.
Like, at first glance, when, you know, you're presented with the gospel and you're presented with Jesus, and, you know, Jesus is like, listen, if you're going to do this, you got to lay everything. Like, there's going to be a cost. And we're in America, we're an American church. Oh, there's a cost. Okay. But everybody else in church, like, they have a nice house, they have nice cars. Like, what's the cost? And the cost is yourself. And are you willing to give that up? And I don't think, like what you said earlier, like you're making it your foundation versus adding it on top. And people want to be like, okay, I want the money, I want the things, I want the lifestyle that everyone else has. But then I do see some of the value in God. And I mean, I don't know, that's probably why this is impacting me, because Matt was talking about that. Wasn't it 2 weeks ago about adding?
I think
adding
just
God.
last week.
Was it last week?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep.
So, and then you said that Wednesday night because you were listening to a podcast or
Yeah.
something about adding God to your life. But I thought that was interesting.
Yeah.
Oh, also,
go ahead.
sorry.
No, go ahead. I'm gonna write something.
I feel like I was just thinking about like the analogy of like where if you have you at the center of the universe, like people are going to not be drawn towards that. They're going to be kind of on the outside of that. Whereas if you have God at the center of your universe, people are going to be completely drawn towards that. They're going to be drawn towards what's life-giving. Whereas if I have myself at that point, it's going to be like, oh, they don't really care that much because they kind of like care about themselves more than they do it me in this moment. So
yeah. No, yeah, it's a good analogy. And then I'm sure you guys have all heard this passage, but it's Mark 10:25. It says, "It is easier for a camel to go through the eye of a needle than for someone who is rich to enter the kingdom of God." And like, when you stop and think about that, like, okay, so you work at a chicken farm, and how old are you?
16.
Okay, you're 16. So if you would divide up how much you make, you don't have to say how much you make, but it would probably be more than $2 a day, right?
Yeah.
So, which with inflation, this might have gone up, but but like the average person makes, I think it's like $1 to $2 a day is the last thing that I looked at. And so, you know, even if you're in America and you make 40 grand, you could say, well, I'm not rich because I don't have that mansion or a Lamborghini or something like that, but we are rich. And I don't know, I think it's a passage that we don't think about enough. Like, what does it mean that it's got, like, Jesus is talking about me. Like, it's tough for me to enter the kingdom of heaven, like, because I'm rich.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? I was listening to Francis Chan the other day, and he was preaching on being lukewarm, and he crumbled up $2 bills, and he throws them into the crowd just to see like what would happen. So he threw the one, and literally the lady goes and dodges the dollar bill. he goes, see, like, people around the world would think I was crazy for throwing a day's wages out into a crowd. And he's like, you guys are literally dodging.
Don't want it to hit me.
You're like, don't let this dollar bill touch me. Yeah. But
right.
it is something, like, that's something, I don't know if it's subconscious or what, but it's something that we need to realize that, like, and bring before God, like, don't let me fall into the trap of being rich, because it's really easy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's the same thing as, I would say it's similar to self. Like the reason it's hard for that it says rich people to enter the kingdom is because that money makes you focus on yourself.
Yeah, and you lose that desperation.
Right.
Yeah.
And then something I like to justify myself with is like, oh, they have so much more than me. Why aren't they giving to people? Like, why do I have to be the one who does it? Why aren't they doing it?
Yeah.
Whereas, like, yeah, again, like, most people don't make more than $2 a day. And I am rich compared to that. And yet I can still be so self-centered and so, just like trying to justify it. Like, oh, they have so much more than me. They should be the ones.
Yeah. One thing that, like, I don't know why, I mean, probably just over the past few weeks, that Colossians, and then talking about Daniel, and then Wednesday we talked about idols, and that kind of goes along with this too. But I was thinking, like, there's been a lot of people like my age and like in between 20s and 30s that I've talked to that, like, they don't feel they don't feel like their life has a purpose, or maybe they struggle with like depression or anxiety or something like that. And I don't want to downplay any of those things, because those are real things, and like people in my family have struggled with that too. But I feel like part of the like feeling purpose in your life goes like right along with this. And I think those, like not feeling purpose in your life, or not feeling like what am I doing? Why am I here? Like those are just an indication that like God is calling you to something higher.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And as much as we don't want to ask ourselves like, am I lukewarm? It's a question that we're going to have to like keep coming back to, I think, especially living in America.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
But
And we need the truth to expose that within ourselves.
yeah.
Right. And thinking about how like intense that passage is, whereas God's saying like, I would rather you be cold than
Mhm.
lukewarm.
Yeah.
It's like, I'd rather you not believe at all than pretend to believe.
Yeah.
So what do you oh, I remember the other thing I was going to say was in that sermon that Francis Chan was at the beginning of it. He was talking about like your average American Christian, and he was saying like, you know, we see somebody that's like being a missionary to India. Like I've seen when Mary or I tell people that her brother's in India, and they're like, oh, like it just happened to Mary the other day. Oh, why? Like why are they in India? Like, but anyway, he was talking about like the average American Christian, and he was saying that like we look at people that are radical, and the average American Christian looks at people that are radical, and they say like they're weird, and he's like, no, we're the weird Christians.
Yeah.
We're the ones that aren't living out our faith like 100%. We're the ones that are adding.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know, I feel like that's so true, because when everyone around you is doing the same thing, it's really hard to be like, I don't think this is what was happening in Acts. Like,
Yeah.
you know, and we need to do something about it.
Right.
It's difficult.
And like you said, living 100% is not living 100% of like up to expectations.
Mm-hmm.
It's living 100% of your faith, which means like one step. So like you were saying, missionaries to India, anywhere else, the difference is that they're just taking one step,
Mm-hmm.
right? But like you were saying, Marcia, it's a constant battle of like keep taking that one step.
Yeah. Something that Brad said to me that I'll never forget is, I can't remember exactly what I said to him, but it was something like something to the effect of like, I can't believe that you guys are actually going to India. Like,
Yeah.
this is crazy. And he was like, you know, a lot of people keep saying that, like, wow, I can't believe you'd give up America and like your family and to go live in India and do that. That's amazing. Like, and you're doing that for God. Like, oh, that's so amazing. And he's like, in a lot of ways, like, we're actually taking the easy way out.
Yeah.
Right.
Because we're not going to be as distracted. What we're going to say.
You're escaping the blessing.
Yeah.
So that you don't have to survive it.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Interesting.
That's the other thing. Yeah. Survive the blessing. That was something from perspectives.
Yeah, and it's like when you're gone on mission, that is your entire focus.
Mm-hmm.
Like that's what you're thinking about all the time, is bringing the gospel to these people.
Mm-hmm.
Whereas I think when you're here going throughout your daily life, that's not what's on your mind.
Yeah.
Or thinking about, oh, how can I share the gospel with this person?
Yeah. You're thinking this person, whatever happens, this person does not want to talk to me.
Yeah.
Right.
And that's something else. I was listening to The Porch, and they were like, some of the excuses people give for not sharing the gospel is, oh, well, I don't want to force my religion on people. And he was just saying, like, in 100 years, or when that person has been like, is suffering in hell because you didn't want to be uncomfortable for a minute and try to force the gospel on them when really that would have saved their lives.
Something that we learned when we went to Denver was like Greg talked about this. I don't know if you guys remember, but he said like, I mean, literally the gospel means good news. Like it means good news. Like,
Yep.
And
That was in Perspectives too.
was it in perspective? Yeah. And I mean, like that's what it is. If you're, Greg said, if you're sharing the gospel and it doesn't sound like good news, you're not doing it right.
Right.
Yeah.
So it's like, it's not really, I don't know. It kind of helped me because I always think about like that too. Like, I feel like I'm like forcing this,
Yeah.
you know, but it's like, we got to look at it the other way. Like, it's like, no, this is just great news.
Yeah,
Like, your life is saved.
Yeah, that
Exactly.
person, if they have lived in hell for that long, they're not going to come to you saying, I'm so glad you didn't share, like,
Yeah, I
force
know.
your religion on me.
That was so awkward.
I'm so glad you didn't do
Yeah,
that.
Yeah, exactly. They're going to be grateful. Yeah. It is, it's easier said than done, obviously.
Mhm.
But yeah, when you look at life backwards, it changes your perspective too.
Right.
But yeah. So, I mean, we've kind of talked a little bit about this, but already, but like, what are some solutions? Like, if you, like, if someone's listening to this and they're like, oh, like, maybe I'm lukewarm. I don't know. Like, what are some ways to like not be lukewarm? What are some ways to get on fire? What do you think?
Yeah. Escaping yourself, I think, focus on yourself is easier if you have something else to focus on. Because you can't just take the focus off of yourself and then go from there.
Yeah.
So you have to replace it with focusing on Jesus.
Right.
Yeah.
That's something we've been talking a lot about with living differently. Is you're not changing something in yourself and you're not adding something on top of yourself to live differently.
Yeah.
You're just living like Jesus.
Yeah.
And that will be different just by definition, basically.
But wow, that makes it so easy. Like, because I mean, we think it's so hard, but basically what you just said was to like, I don't have to do anything or be amazing. Like, I'm always like, I always see people and I'm like, oh man, I wish I could like be that kind of speaker or that kind of presenter or something like that. But what you just said is like, all I have to do is take my focus off of me and put it on God, and I don't have to do anything.
Yeah.
Right.
It's kind of like a sigh of relief.
Yeah.
Yeah.
God's going to put you in those situations and in those places, and is going to call you to kind of what he wants you to do in that moment. And again, like we were talking about, like completely switching out the focuses and like, again, like that building it off of Jesus, not adding it on, I think is just a big thing. Like, you're going to be on fire for Christ if he is your main focus, if he's what you're building your entire life on.
Yeah.
You're going to be on fire for him. You have no choice if that's what your entire life is built on.
Yeah. It's something that God has taught me throughout my life is that, like, and I mean, I think you see it in the Bible, like with Moses and with Jonah too. Like, people are like, all right, God, like, why are you using me? Like, you should be using someone else. And I don't know, as I was growing up, I was like, what am I going to do with my life? Well, I'm definitely going to college. And but my biggest fear was public speaking. And so, like, if somebody would have nobody even said this, but if somebody would have said like, hey, you could be a youth pastor, I would have like probably laughed at them, honestly, or in my head, because I can't speak in front of people, so I'm not going to do that.
Right.
So I feel like one of the easiest things, and like, it's really easy for me when I'm like preparing or speaking to keep the focus off of me, because I didn't give this to me. Like being able to speak in front of people now with no nerves, like that was not me, because I would have run out the door.
Right.
Yeah.
And so it's easier for me to focus on God in those moments, because it's not me. Like, God put me in this position. God gave me the ability to do this. It wasn't me.
And I think that's really powerful, because it reminds me of the verse that says God's power is perfected in our weakness. Like, that's the perfect picture of your, like, one of your biggest weaknesses. You would say that. like that's become one of your greatest strengths because you rely on God in that.
Yeah.
And it makes it easier to keep relying on God.
Yeah. And it keeps me humble because it's him, not me.
Yeah.
So, no, but I like, you know, you're 16, you're 17, right?
Yep.
Like, I don't know. I just think of, like, you were talking about how, like, God can use you. And I was thinking, when you were talking about that, I was thinking about, like, people that work behind the scenes in church that the average person doesn't even know what they do. Like, Tim does a lot of stuff.
Yep.
But we don't see what he does.
Right.
And so we don't even think about it. So God could use you in that way. Like, Tim's good at that kind of stuff. So God has used him to do that for the body. But the other way is like, what are you bad at?
Yeah.
Like, don't count that out from don't count that out from what God can use you for, or use to show his glory. So
I think another, like, almost in an excuse way, I like to be like, okay, so I'm not in this place, so God can't use me yet. Whereas he's just asking you to surrender yourself and let him do the work to use you. Like, I tend to be like, okay, all right, well, I didn't do this correctly, so I can't be used in that way. Or, like, I'm sure with your personality being a 1, like, I'm not perfect, so God can't use me.
Yeah.
Like,
I think that often. I was thinking that Wednesday, honestly. But yeah. Yeah, I always think, well, now I think about, like, what Jeff Johnson said. Like, he's like, if you're waiting till you're ready, guess what? You're not going to be ready. You're never going to be ready.
Yeah.
So, yeah. Okay, so what are there any other, like, what are some, like, practical solutions? Like, if you're listening to this and you're like, I could be lukewarm, what could I go do tonight or tomorrow?
Yeah. Like we said, following Jesus. How do you do that then?
Yeah.
That's the question. And the simplest thing that I've been seeing in all this stuff is just reading the Bible and then praying.
Yeah.
That's basically all I have to say. I mean, there is other stuff, but in terms of following Jesus, like, those are the best places to start.
Yeah.
And I found them to be really practical too.
Yeah.
I feel like I was telling you about this. I have always struggled to just, like, take some time daily to where I'm just spending intentional time in the Word. Yeah. And I definitely am not, like, I don't like reading. I'm not a reader, but, like, that's not an excuse for me not taking time to, just spend time in Scripture. But I think it's also just intentionally being like, this is something that I'm learning right now too, just because I'm such, like, I like to do stuff. I like to be go, go, go. Like, I don't need to go. I can spend this time. I can spend this time just being intentional and, like, rather than going out and getting coffee or, like, going out and being with friends, I can take some time to be by myself and, spend time in the Word or just pray or, I think you have to let yourself have time to be by yourself and think, because I feel like, especially Americans, like, we're always go, go, go. We're always listening to something or doing something, like, rather than taking some time. I think you learn most about yourself and about God when you're taking time intentionally, spending time with him, and also, like, he's going to show you things about yourself that you need to grow. And it's so hard because I'm always like, oh, well, I'll do that tomorrow. It'll happen tomorrow. Yeah. And then I never end up. I mean, if it means waking up early, then I need to wake up early. Yeah.
I think that's good what you said, that God will show us what we need to work on. That's another thing that comes from prayer, is that we don't just keep praying. Like, God can show us stuff that we can work on. Yeah. And that can help us, like, to know what to go after. Yeah. And then the other thing is being more aware of, like, setting aside that time. Like, the body of believers can really help with that. Yeah. So I think that's one major thing we haven't really talked about. Yeah. Is encouragement and everyone doing it together.
Yeah. No, that's really good. Yeah.
Yeah.
You can't like we were talking earlier about taking steps.
Mm-hmm.
Like you can only go so many steps by yourself, and then you plateau. Like you can't, without the body, I mean, that's just the way it is. Without the body, you're not going to be able to take the next step.
Mm-hmm.
And that's why church is so important. But,
right. That's what I was going to say. Like, if you don't have people around you keeping you accountable, and you don't have those people, you can just be like, okay, I'm really tempted to just go out and do this, but I know I need to spend time in the Word. And if you don't have people pushing you towards spending time in the Word and spending time with Jesus, and then you're just really not going to go anywhere.
Yeah.
Like, you need people to be beside you. And the same thing, like, you're able to be a blessing to them then. You're able to say, well, why don't we go out and, like, do a Bible study together or spend, Yeah. And I think it's just, something, again, that I've been thinking about a lot is just being very incorporated in the church, in the body, with people.
Mm-hmm.
Being very intentional with people about just having hard conversations, taking time to look through the Word with people. Yeah.
I feel like I could talk about this all day, but the one that testimony I talked about earlier, the thing that she like ended with was like the thing that keeps her coming back to her desperation, because for her she's like, if I'm not desperate for God, then I'm gonna be lukewarm.
Mm-hmm.
Just how it is. So she said that like the thing that she does is she will like, she always comes back to repentance. And so like for her, she just keeps repenting because that shows her her need for God. Mm-hmm. Like I need God in my life to get me to that next step. And then the other thing that I was thinking of, and we talked about this with Daniel and talking about like idols, is like, actually we talked about this a little bit. We talked about idols on Wednesday, but then at Off the Wall we talked about, I don't know if you were in that one, but Don talked about like blind spots in discipleship, and like how in discipleship you have to learn what your blind spots are. And we were talking about the body just a second ago. Like without the body, like it's kind of tough because blind spots, you can't see them. Mm-hmm. So like we all have things in our life that we're not able, or maybe we're not as good at seeing, like we need to cut this out, or we need to work on this to be discipled. But there's a passage in Matthew that came to my mind. Hopefully I can find it here soon.
I guess while you look at that, I could share one thing that helps me with like staying in that state of like desperation is kind of just contrasting the two different roads. Like, where does self lead and where does focusing on God lead? Mm. And then kind of seeing that and using that to contrast like where I'm at right now, where my heart and mind is at, and then being able to go all in.
Yeah.
It's hard, but yeah.
Yeah. It takes discipline for sure. All right. Well, I'll just reference it because
sure.
But it's the passage where Jesus is talking and he's like, it's better that you cut off your arm than to take your arm with you to hell. And I feel like that's true with like idols in our life, but not just idols. Like it could be something that's not even that serious. Like maybe it's, like you said, we live in America. So if you want to listen to 50 podcasts a day, you can. If you want to watch a movie while you're driving, you can do that, honestly.
Yeah.
Like, we have a computer in our hands. We have social media. We have just tons of things competing for our attention. And we have to be willing to say, like, okay, I'm not okay with my relationship with God. What is it in my life that I can cut out? And that's what made me think of that passage, was just like, do you really, like, when you get to the end of your life, are you really going to be like, wow, I'm really glad that I spent, 2 hours a day on Instagram
Right.
Like, there's no way you're going to say that. And so just trying to gain that discipline.
And what are you working for? Are you working for things that are going to last like 100 years from now? Like working towards eternity, or are you working towards things that maybe could last for like 2 years?
Yeah. Yeah. Cool. Well, I mean, obviously we could keep going on about this topic, but I think we covered most everything.
Sure.
Or a lot of things. Maybe not most everything. So, Chris, will you close us?
Sure.
Prayer?
Sure.
Okay.
All right. Father, thank you for this time that we could just come and just be able to share our minds and our hearts. I pray that it would, that this time would just speak to us and give us some things that we can work on, things that we can focus on, that it would shift our focus back to you. So just let this be encouraging to anyone who hears this, and that we would rely on each other, and most of all, rely on you. In Jesus' name, amen.
Amen. All right. Thanks, guys.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank
Peace.
you.